Barkley.
No,
right.
might be. No truth to that.
The Cleveland Browns began their first OTA session yesterday with the most notable absence from voluntary workouts being Myles Garrett. Apparently, if you look at his Instagram, he's in Japan. All the focus, though, is on the quarterback battle. It's very, very crowded there. Here's Kevin Stefanski.
We're mixing it up every single day, so that's why I tell you not to read much into it, even though you guys don't listen to me. But we're just trying to get guys exposure to different concepts, those type of things. So we're not leaning into or worried about the order at this moment.
Because it's a good question to bait somebody into answering, and no matter how they answer it, it kind of makes the guy that's answering it look bad. If I say I don't want to be a mentor, I look bad. If I say I do want to be a mentor, then I look like an idiot that doesn't care about being good and playing football. I tend to try to be honest, and I've said I'm not a mentor. I play football. There's learning experiences, and I have a lot of experience, and I can talk on things, and hopefully they listen. But it's not necessarily like my job to like make sure they listen to me. And
you gotta appreciate his honesty there, Bug. I mean, really.
I love it.
You got Flacco, you got Pickett, you got Gabriel, you got Sanders. I mean, what do you make of this crowded room, Bug?
They got a lot of misfit toys in that room, and I get it. First of all, I love the honesty from Joe Flacco. His job is not to be the role model, the mentor. It's to come in there and be the veteran quarterback and try to bring some stability to that room. As far as the room in general, like Deshaun Watson, 2 Achilles surgeries, Flacco, Kenny Pickett with the 2 gloves, then you got the 2 rookies coming in with Sanders and Gabriel. I don't know what we're going to get from them. I don't think anybody with any sense knows what you're going to get from that room. I suspect at some point it's going to be Flacco or Kenny Pickett trying to figure out who's going to start, and then they're going to figure out with the young guys. I don't think Watson is going to be ready coming off not just 1, but 2 Achilles surgeries. So at some point, Lewis, like if you're really going to be honest about this room, they really don't know what they have in this room right now, and they got to hope that somebody steps forward, whether it's a young guy or one of the veterans that they have.
Look, it's really going to be all about rep efficiency, right? As a player, that's what you're looking for. As a coach, that's what you're looking for. Meaning, look, everyone's not going to get equal reps. Everyone's not going to get the same amount of reps, exposed to the same looks, get the same number of throws in each period, whether it be first down, second down, third down, red area 2 minute. But it's about the efficiency. It's about having as close to perfect reps as possible. And then it's up to Kevin Stefanski. And then I think it's important for Kevin Stefanski to move this around from day to day, from practice to practice, to make sure, as he just said, make sure all these guys, though, are exposed to the situations that he needs to expose them to, so he can then make a real organic decision about who's the best guy, so it's truly a meritocracy. You want to make sure that in the end is what comes out of this, and that you're not stacking the deck in one guy's favor over another, which we've seen coaches do now because they're human beings, and they want certain guys to excel based upon their own convictions going into it. And we've seen that mess things up in the history, and we'll see it mess things up going forward.
I think it's so interesting what you're saying, because I remember covering the Seahawks in 2012 up at that training camp up in Renton, Washington, and they had the late Tavares Jackson in camp. You had Matt Flynn, who just signed a massive free agent deal, and in comes the 3rd round Russell Wilson, and he was bar none the best player. And then the preseason starts, and he's throwing touchdowns all over the Cowboys. And to a man, you couldn't look around to anyone covering the team or anyone within the organization and say anything. Then, hey, our 3rd round rookie's the best quarterback we got. He started in week 1. It's really difficult for a day 3 quarterback to start out of the gate. But with the current situation, and you have a Joe Flacco who has been there, done that, and has been there, done that with this team, and you have Kenny Pickett, who was a backup last year, and you have Dylan Gabriel, who no one else really saw as a day 1 or day 2 pick other than the Cleveland Browns. There is a window. But for Shedeur to have that opportunity, he has to outwork and outplay those guys every single day, because the uphill battle of being a day 3 pick, that is real. Yet I think there is a window open, and in other situations where there's a bona fide starting quarterback, there wouldn't be. So there is an opportunity for Shedeur to win this job.
Yeah, and you bring up the Wilson comparison, maybe the guy nobody saw coming, and then in no time he brought them to their first Super Bowl. championship. That was quite a story. All right, the Eagles lost some key pieces on the defensive side of the ball this season. Milton Williams and Josh Sweat each signed with new teams, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson was traded. But they paid Saquon, signing him to a 2-year, $41 million extension, making him the highest-paid running back in the history of the NFL. They also signed All-Pro linebacker Zach Bond to a 3-year deal. And Kevin Patullo will be replacing Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. Patullo spent the last 4 seasons as the Eagles passing game coordinator and held the title of associate coach the last 2 seasons. New on NFL Live, he was asked if that offense would look different this fall.
So I think really when you say different, I think it's going to be like, what do our players do best, like it's been? And then from there, we just expand upon it. Hey, we're really good at this. Let's bring this to the table and try this and see where we can take it. And I think really when you look at just our staff as a whole, we've added some new coaches, so they bring some other layers to it too, and then the knowledge of what they have from their background. So I think as we go forward, as we build this thing together as a staff, you'll see some new wrinkles here and there, but more so it's just kind of building on what our players do best.
And here's the thing, having new play callers, that's nothing new for Jalen Hurts. Patullo, who was an associate head coach, well, this will be his 12th different play caller since he started college back in 2016. And for Hurts, it's his 6th different since entering the NFL in 2020. Despite this, he has the 8th most touchdowns in this span and has the 5th best winning percentage of any quarterback. So, Peter, to what extent do you think he will have to adjust again?
It's a wild stat. 12 different play callers since college, 6th new play caller since joining the NFL. And yet you look at Kevin Patullo's resume. In recent years, he has made a steady climb. He started off with the New York Jets, where he was an assistant coach. Then he went to the Colts, and then he was, of course, with the Eagles all these years. So those Colts and Eagles years, who is he working with? He was working with Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni. And I said, you know what? I know it's the middle of the day. He's at Stanford as their interim coach. I texted Frank Reich this morning. I go, give me something to tell the Eagles fans. Give me something to tell the audience about Kevin Patullo other than a guy who's in a baseball cap and the shadow on his face and talking in generic coach speak. Here's from Frank Reich earlier today, texting me. Really smart, but has no ego. He's hyper organized. He's got strong conviction, and he's an amazing collaborator and teammate. Look, Kevin Patullo is no stranger to Jalen Hurts. They've been in the same building for the last 4 years, and he's no stranger to Sirianni. They go back to their time in Indianapolis together. This is different than hiring from the outside or building an entirely new offense around Jalen Hurts' skills. This is, hey, we're trying to keep this as consistent as it is. And Lewis, as you know, in a case like Jalen Hurts, you want to keep the trains on the tracks because last year ended on such a high note.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think the number one factor here is the fact that Kevin is no stranger to this building. He's no stranger to the offensive meetings. He's no stranger to Jalen Hurts. And quite honestly, the glue that's supposed to keep this all together, quite honestly, is the head coach, who he obviously has ultimate familiarity with Nick Sirianni. So that's how this should not get off the tracks. And I think one of the most important things that he said that leads you to the belief that, he realizes the same thing is the fact that he said, hey, look, I'm here to really just put our players in position to do what they do best. And I think what he's referring to is think about last year, how their offense evolved. What did they do best last year for the better part of the season? They captured a line of scrimmage, and Saquon Barkley went off and almost had a historic season had they allowed him to go ahead and break the rushing record. That's what they did. They realized what their strengths were. As Adam Schefter likes to say all the time, Stoutland U was in full effect, meaning Jeff Stoutland, the Hall of Fame offensive line coach, had all those guys playing great up front, and everyone just fed off of that. I expect it to be a lot of the same in 2025.
And no doubt about it. And I love how we look at Kevin and talk about his prowess as a play caller. Here's the thing. I don't care if me, Schrager, or Louis Riddick, I don't even care if Hannah Storm was calling plays. Here's the one thing that we know. Is that the offensive line is really, really good. We know that the quarterback is really good at running the football. We know that you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. It doesn't take a genius to put the offense together around that. It's going to stop and start with their ability to control the line of scrimmage and run the football. And then you build off of that with the quarterback run game, the play action pass, and some little wrinkles that every offensive coordinator comes in. This is no different than any business in the NFL. anytime you get someone new in charge, they always want to add their own little touch so they can say it's their offense. I suggest that Kevin's going to do that. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they are going to run the football and play action pass and take shots down the field to their big play wide receivers. It was successful last year, and I think it'll be successful again this season.
Yeah, dance with what brung you. No reason for wholesale changes there. We got to show you, because you guys have been talking about Saquon, this amazing craftsmanship of this window above a transom. Look at that. That's the reverse leap by Saquon, captured in stained glass. He's leaping, I guess, reverse leaping over the front door. There's no truth to the rumor that that's actually Louis Riddick's house.
Hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các bạn cách làm một chiếc mũ mini đội đầu cho búp bê từ len nha. Nguyên liệu của mình đây nhá, mình sẽ sử dụng 3 màu sắc len như thế này để làm này. Màu trắng, màu xanh lá cây và màu cam nhá. Sẽ kết hợp 3 màu sắc này lại với nhau. Mình sẽ sử dụng kim móc len để làm này. Và kéo nữa. Rồi bây giờ sẽ bắt tay vào làm. Đầu tiên mình sẽ sử dụng cái phần len màu cam trước nhé. Bây giờ sẽ gỡ len ra để dùng. Mình gỡ len ra. Rồi bây giờ sẽ móc vào đây một cái hình tròn nhé mọi người. Mình móc một cái hình tròn. Đây là cái chóp mũ của mình. Đây, móc vào. Móc vào những cái mũi nửa kép. Sau đó là móc xuống để tạo ra hình tròn nhé. Đây, những mũi nửa kép như thế này. Mình móc vào. Tiếp nha mọi người. Đây mình móc những mũi tiếp theo xuống này. Cứ lần lượt từng mũi. Tiếp tục móc xuống nhé. Đấy, cứ làm luân phiên cho mình là được. Tiếp nha. Đấy, cứ làm luân phiên cho đến hết thôi. Rồi những mũi nữa cũng làm y như vậy. Tiếp tục móc xuống. Mũi tiếp theo. Đấy, mọi người làm lần lượt xuống như thế này nhé. Được một nửa hình tròn ở đây này. Bây giờ sẽ móc nốt nửa còn lại. Mình tiếp tục mình móc xuống. Cứ làm luân phiên cho đến hết. Tiếp nha mọi người. Mũi nữa này. Cứ lần lượt từng mũi. Một mũi nữa đây. Một mũi nữa nhé. Bây giờ sẽ móc nối vào đây và siết dây. Đây, móc nối vào và siết dây. Rồi mình sẽ được một cái hình tròn màu cam như thế này nhé. Giờ sẽ móc những cái mũi tiếp theo xuống. Bây giờ thì mình sẽ móc sang cái màu trắng này, sang màu trắng nhé. Cái này nó là cái chóp mũ của mình đấy. Thì cái chóp mũ của mình nó đang rất là nhỏ nha mọi người. Đây. Nó sẽ nhỏ xíu như thế này nên là mình sẽ phải móc cho nó rộng thêm ra nhé. Móc vào màu trắng này. Siết chặt phần dây màu cam lại. Rồi bây giờ mình sẽ móc xuống đây. Móc từng mũi một xuống này. Hàng này thì mình vẫn sẽ sử dụng là mũi nửa kép nhé. Nhưng mà móc theo tỷ lệ là 2-1.